Okay, so hey guys, it's Plotsalot here with another My Hero Academia What If video, and today we're going to be doing What If Deku was an RPG character, part 2. So in the last part, we had Deku go ahead and end up battling with the sludge villain being saved by All Might. So after the whole incident is concluded, Deku is actually applauded by the heroes this time. He saved the helpless looking boy there, and he actually did a decent job of it. He showed that he wasn't, completely quirkless and running in just because he was stupid. He had a shot. He pulled out Bakugo from the sludge villain, and the heroes really appreciate that. Bakugo himself is extremely shocked at Deku's strength. He just looks at Deku with this confused yet extremely angry and annoyed look before storming off after being debriefed and getting some medical attention. All Might leaves after stating that he'd see those boys around. He first talks to Bakugo a little bit while he's getting his medical attention, and he gives Deku a smile before jumping off. Deku heads home, and on the way home, just like in the anime, he's approached by Bakugo, who says he doesn't owe him anything, and that just because he's got a quirk, he shouldn't get all cocky, and that he's still better than him. And All Might, just like in the anime, goes ahead and approaches him as well and offers him one for all. He asks him the question, I know your quirk might be new, but do you want to be a hero? And Deku just enthusiastically starts screaming yes, because of course he does. He receives the offer of one for all from All Might and he accepts gladly. Now, as a result of this, Deku still has to go through the beach training. All Might has seen that he's stronger than he looks, and he's awakened his quirk, which seems to has made him a lot stronger, but he still feels that his body needs some more training to accept one for all. So Deku goes ahead and gets to the beach, sees the gigantic piles of rubble, and thinks to himself, oh god, I'm never going to clean this, am I? Now, Deku's training is very beneficial for him. As Deku's training, he starts to learn some skills. So for example, as he was pushing around the rubble, he leveled up to level 15 and learnt the skill Mighty Push, which helped him to push the rubble a lot faster. He could just give it one small shove and it would go flying. Deku also learnt the dash skill at level 20, which allowed him to make a very quick dash in a straight line at the cost of a small amount of his stamina. He learnt that from almost being crushed by a fridge that was going to drop on him after moving a little bit of rubble around. And overall, this leveling up, getting him stronger and him learning these new skills to make him more efficient, means that he actually finishes his rubble clearing after only a month. Working out in between and everything, he managed to complete all of the beach cleanup within a month. And post the 1 month training, his stats have increased quite a lot. He's now at level 27, his HP stats gone up to 20, his stamina's gone up to 42, his agility's gone up to 22, his speed at 37, his intelligence had increased to 51 from 40, his strength to 44, his accuracy to 21, his stealth to 26, and his charisma to 20. He'd also learnt some new skills, so now his skill set contained Mighty Pull, Mighty Push, and Dash. So Deku's skill set was coming along rather nicely. He'd started to develop quite a few skills, and generally he was becoming more powerful. He'd grown quite a lot physically as well. He'd kept up with his studies extremely easily because of his his intelligence stat increasing, and he'd now grown in height as well to about 6 foot. He wasn't that muscular, but he was extremely well toned. His strength was enough to handle one for all in All Might's eyes, and All Might looks at him, pulls out a strand of his hair, and says, eat this. Deku's confused, eats the odd food item, and the next morning, Deku wakes up and sees something inside of his heads-up display. New skill acquired. Quirk. One for all. Deku goes ahead and after, his morning, he goes ahead, does his exercise, whatever. He decides to step outside and give this skill a test. After school, he went into an abandoned part of town and activates his new skill, Quirk One for All, and feels a rush of energy throughout his body. The heads-up display says, skill activation attempted, Quirk One for All. After a few seconds, he hears, full skill usage failed, activating 20% of Quirk One for All. Deku's body wasn't powerful enough, wasn't strong enough to handle the full one for all at the moment, but because he was significantly stronger, the heads-up display had allowed him to access 20% of one for all, but realistically this was straining his body a lot. And so Deku tones this down manually to 10%. He feels that 20% is far too much for him to handle at the current moment in his training. Deku gets the same red lightning over his body, similar to if he were to access full cowling. However, the heads-up display activation of his skill does make it much more effective and slows down the perception of his time to actually match his speed. Deku finds this out because he accidentally moves his arm to the side and nearly knocks off one of his All Might figurines after getting back home, but it falls in slow motion. Deku catches the figurine easily and places it back on the shelf, carefully making sure to not damage it at all, speeding the perception of time back up and learning to control the amount used a bit by just his sheer determination to not destroy the figurine. His respect for it had actually helped him to control it quite a lot more because he really did not want to break that. It was one of his prized possessions. All Might is waiting on the beach the next day for Deku and explains to Deku how to use one for all. He gives him the egg metaphor, but Deku just says, "Don't worry about it, All Might. I actually figured it out myself." All Might's shocked and very impressed, but Deku explains that his quirk can activate it for him. Deku notices that his stats actually get quite a major temporary boost when one for all is activated, but his stamina rapidly decreases dependent on the percentage that he activates. With Deku's current stamina level, only around 7% of one for all seems to be able to be used without completely exhausting him by the end of their training sessions. Deku trains with All Might sparring for the next few months until the UA entrance exams. He gains quite a lot of strength and levels, but during this training, he's not the only one training in the story. Bakugo had seen Deku's incredible growth by seeing him during school. He'd seen how much he'd physically grown, he'd seen how much stronger he'd become and how much more confident and smart he'd become, and he was starting to feel a little bit of inferiority, and that was something that Bakugo really wasn't used to. Bakugo was used to being the top dog in their relationship. He was 100% the powerful one there, and so seeing Deku actually being able to keep up, actually getting stronger with a quirk now, he was no longer quirkless Deku. He was respectable. He was strong. He was a contender, and Bakugo did not like that. Bakugo wanted to remedy that as much as possible, and so Bakugo also trained the whole time until the UA entrance exam, also getting significantly stronger, but still, he was shocked by just how much faster Deku was getting stronger and how his quirk had manifested at possibly the worst time for him. He might not even be number 1 when he got to UA. Of course not. Of course that wasn't the case. Bakugo was always number 1, in his own mind, but that was starting to challenge his views. Deku was starting to challenge his views. Of all people, Deku. Now, Deku just before the exam had gotten significantly stronger. His height had now grown to 6'2" from 6 foot. This is going to be his final height. I think 6'2", 6'3" is about tall enough that he's now taller than most people, but not super imposing. He has very muscular model-like build that's very toned. He's not too muscular that, he looks like some bodybuilder, but you can clearly see that he's quite broad and muscular, and he's very, very toned. His level at this point has shot up to 44 after their 10 months of training. His HP spat was now 79, his stamina now sitting at 77, his agility sitting at 48, his speed at 55, his strength at 72. He boosted a lot of his level up points and a lot of his points in terms of his training in strength, as he wanted to be as close to All Might as possible. His intelligence had leveled up to 81, making him a much more effective tactician. His accuracy had gone up to 41, his stealth and charisma had both gone up to 36. And at this point his skills contained Mighty Pull, Mighty Pull, Mighty Pull, Mighty Push, Dash, and Quirk One for All, of which he could use 15% comfortably at this point. The day of the entrance exam finally arrives. Deku looks up at the UA entrance and he's thinking, wow, I might actually get in, because I have a shot here. I have a shot. Deku trips just like in the normal timeline, but just before Uraraka's about to save him with his quirk, he just flips himself back up as if nothing even happened. His reaction time and his agility are much faster in this timeline, and so realistically he can just flip himself back up with very little effort. The Deku in this timeline is seriously much better, and one big difference is that when Uraraka does question if he's okay, Deku has much less trouble speaking to her, as his charisma stat boosts his social ability naturally. He's just become a lot more comfortable speaking to people, and that is honestly really pleasing for Deku, as he wants to be as close to All Might as possible. He wants to make it so that when he talks to people, they feel very comfortable around him. He wants to be the symbol of peace and live up to All Might's expectations as his successor. Deku sits the written exam, and he aces it, getting the second highest score behind only Momo Yaoyorozu. The practical test begins, and Deku straight away activates One for All, and makes a beeline for the first robot, slamming into it with a mighty push, and it careens into several robots directly behind it, taking out 3 1-pointers and a 2-pointer nearly instantly at the start of the exam, shocking everyone else there at his sheer speed and how quickly he reacted to the test starting. Everybody else is in a panic now. They've seen that if they don't hurry up, they aren't going to get any robots left. There are some monsters in this test. Deku starts absolutely demolishing the robots around the place, leaping off the walls, slamming into them with punches. He's very similar to All Might in his fighting style, but using more abilities such as his mighty pull and push and his dash. He's taken inspiration from times when he's seen Bakugo training as well, and his fighting style is almost like a hybrid between All Might and Bakugo's. He tends to leap around quite a lot using his dash ability, but a lot of his attacks are purely punches, because again, he's inspired by All Might. His fighting style is very much inspired by All Might, and so his punches are his main thing. Now, this is great for him. He's throwing around rubble with his accuracy stat, helping him to aim it much better. He's using his abilities and his dash, and he's generally scoring a lot of points. He's doing very well, but at the same time, there's a little bit of a problem, because the 0-point robot appears. Deku's about to run away. He thinks it's not worth any points. There's not really any reason to start fighting this thing. Deku's not super overconfident, and he's also very analytical in this timeline. His intelligence stat had really boosted his ability to problem solve and the effort it would take to go ahead and destroy the 0-point robot, as well as the essentially skills that he would have to show off to maybe future classmates. Showing his trump cards. It's not worth it to take down this robot that really doesn't offer any points. But Deku sees something that really changes his mind. He hears a faint scream of help from under a pile of rubble, and he sees that pile of rubble directly in the path that the 0-point robot was taking. He knew that he now needed to do something 100%. There's no way he can stand there. Deku, a man who wants to be a hero, there's no way he could stand there and just watch as this girl would get crushed. Deku dashes straight towards the scene and quickly analyzes what's going on, jumping on top of a nearby building and actually pushing his body by activating One for All at 20%. His stamina was now decreasing quite fast, but he could keep it up. He looks at the 0-point robot, and in his heads-up display, the status of the 0-point robot pops up, and he sees that his stats exceed the 0-point robots by a decent margin. Deku takes this as his opportunity, smirking, and jumps straight towards the side of the head of the robot with a dash, and slams into it, dead in the center with a One for All powered punch, blowing its head clean off, spinning it round and slamming the robot backwards, toppling it over to the ground with a massive crash. Deku lands in a crouched position, standing up like All Might in the crater formed by his own landing, with his fist raised in the air, and yelling, "Plus Ultra." And just then, the bell signaling the end of the exam rings. Deku gets Uraraka out of the rubble, and he smiles at her. She starts to blush a bit, partially at that, but partially just at the fact that she'd been saved by someone so amazing. Deku's smile was partially also because of the fact that, you know, he finally saved someone with his powers, but also because of the level up to level 45 he just reached, unlocking the next part of the menu that had been teased to him by the heads-up display this whole time, the class system, and Deku was excited. That's where I'm going to leave this one off. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or any comments about it, leave them in the comment section. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos. Click the little bell notification thing if you want to be notified every time I make a new video. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I know I've been gone for a while, but it's nice to see a lot of you guys still kind of watching the videos and stuff. It's really heartwarming, actually, and I like the positive feedback that I'm getting, so keep that up, please. It makes me feel a lot better about myself. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright, bye guys.